Para completion is really about understanding how a thought is built, not just how individual sentences sound. The quickest way to approach it is to treat the paragraph like a logical machine. One part is missing, and your job is to identify the exact missing piece that restores the full flow. Fancy vocabulary can distract you, but the real game is structure, coherence, and the direction of the argument. Once you start reading for logic instead of decoration, the whole question suddenly becomes much cleaner. Para completion is really about understanding how a thought is built, not just how individual sentences sound. The quickest way to approach it is to treat the paragraph like a logical machine. One part is missing, and your job is to identify the exact missing piece that restores the full flow. Fancy vocabulary can distract you, but the real game is structure, coherence, and the direction of the argument. Once you start reading for logic instead of decoration, the whole question suddenly becomes much cleaner. Wood para completion depends on spotting the clues the author leaves behind. Tone consistency matters because an analytical passage expects an analytical ending, not an emotional one. Pronouns must have clear antecedents. Transition words like however and therefore control the direction of thought. And tense should move naturally without sudden jumps. Contrast signals are especially important because they tell you when the writer is shifting from one idea to another. If you track these signals carefully, the answer often reveals itself before you even look at the options closely. CAT usually tests para completion in two main ways. One type asks for the best concluding sentence, where the paragraph is already complete except for the final line. The other type asks for sentence insertion, where a complete paragraph has a gap and one orphan sentence must be placed in the correct spot. The strategy changes depending on the type, so identifying the question pattern first saves time and prevents careless mistakes. That classification is important because the wrong method can make an otherwise easy question look confusing. For concluding sentences, many students read everything repeatedly and still miss the right option. The reason is that they focus on wording instead of trajectory. A concluding sentence should not introduce a completely new direction. It should close the loop smoothly and stay faithful to the paragraph's main idea. The normal method often takes more than 90 seconds because it relies on heavy rereading, so it is slow and mentally expensive. The better approach is to ask what the paragraph is really building toward. The topper's method is much more efficient because it begins with contrast analysis. First, find the flow of the paragraph, then close the loop by checking which option matches the final movement of thought. After that, eliminate answers that introduce a new idea, stay irrelevant, or break the argument's logic. This is where time gets saved because you are not reading every line equally. You are reading with purpose. A strong exam habit is to eliminate first and confirm only the best structural bridge. The word but is one of the biggest clues in para completion because it usually marks a turn in the argument. If the paragraph says something like, the audience was different, but, then the ending has to resolve that contrast specifically. The hidden clue is not always in the last sentence. Often, it is buried earlier in the paragraph and creates a clear roadmap for the final line. Examiner psychology matters here too. The wrong options are often grammatically neat but logically off track. That is why the real test is structural fit, not surface polish. Sentence insertion questions demand a different kind of discipline. The first step is to read the orphan sentence and understand its topic, tense, and pronoun logic. Then the paragraph should be scanned for a place where the sentence fits naturally before and after the surrounding ideas. If you rely only on feeling, you lose time and precision. If you track structure, the placement becomes much more obvious. In this type, the paragraph is not just a story, It is a chain of dependencies. Pronoun and tense traps are some of the easiest places to go wrong. If the orphan sentence says most were first time users, then the surrounding lines must be in the same temporal frame. A sudden move from past to present without reason usually signals a wrong placement. Pronouns like most, this, they, and these must point to something already established nearby. The fastest way to eliminate options is to ask whether the sentence has a clear anchor in the text before it. The second forensic analysis makes one thing very clear. The test is built around cohesion markers. A sentence insertion question is not solved by reading for story. It is solved by reading for structure. If an option sounds good but breaks pronoun reference or tense consistency, it must go. CAT loves this kind of trap because a sentence can appear smooth in isolation and still be completely wrong in context. The correct option is the one that fits both the grammar and the logic of the paragraph. The placement rulebook is very practical. For concluding sentence questions, close the loop, match the tone, and avoid introducing fresh ideas or abrupt endings. For sentence insertion questions, check pronouns, check tense flow, and check connectors like however or therefore. These little rules are not extra details, they are the actual mechanism of solving the question. Once you respect them, the options begin to separate very quickly into likely and unlikely candidates. The elimination matrix gives you the dangerous option types to watch for. Extreme words like always or never are often wrong unless the passage strongly supports them. Off-topic options may sound intelligent but do not relate to the paragraph's premise. Repetition without progress is another trap because it simply restates the previous line instead of advancing the thought. And then there is the beautifully written option that is logically flawed, the most dangerous kind, because it sounds elegant while contradicting the author's direction. A strong 30-second plan keeps you from getting trapped in overthinking. First, find the topic from the opening line. Then, identify the tone of the paragraph. After that, track the transition words and the flow of ideas. Next, eliminate extreme or structurally wrong options. Finally, choose the sentence that acts as the perfect bridge or the cleanest logical ending. When you practice this sequence enough, it starts feeling almost automatic. The cheat sheet brings the entire strategy into one compact revision map. Logic matters more than grammar. Grammar matters more than vocabulary, and vocabulary is only the last layer. Trigger words like however, but, on the other hand, therefore, and hence are your navigation system. Red flags include brand new ideas, tone mismatch, pronoun gaps, and tense jumps. The quickest approach is to read the first and last lines, locate the repeated keyword, and then test whether the sentence preserves the paragraph's structure. Keep that process steady and para completion turns from guesswork into a reliable scoring area.